Hey everyone, welcome to the 5th Junxions development progress video. This time we worked on improving the UI. So as a reminder, let me show you how the old UI looked. So basically there are all these colorful shapes, basic shapes like circles and lines. Nothing very fancy. When we open the intersection tool, we can look, for example, at dividers. We could have placed them like this. When we destroy a road, this is how the connections look. We can of course reconnect it. And when we build high up, it looks like this. So kind of functional, but not very pretty to look at. And there were some edge cases where it didn't even work, like this one. You couldn't access the element inside without actually zooming inside the big one and then dragging it like this. So yeah, looked workable, but not very pretty to look at. So this is the new version of the game. First of all, pointer has been updated, and as you can notice, most of the UI elements size will remain constant, so that when you zoom in or zoom out, the size of the pointer is still the same. I'm talking about the X, not the arrow. And when we start to create the road, there's this node. Most of it is animated, so that it's much easier to look at. And when we drag it here, you can see that the active node is actually rotating while the other one is not. When we confirm the road, it will animate as well. And again, when we zoom out, the size of each node remains the same, so that it's easy to work with. For example, when we're zoomed out, we can still easily snap to existing roads like this. And also when we're zoomed in, it doesn't snap too quickly. So for example, if we want to be working like here, very close to the other point, it's not gonna snap unless we actually drag it right on top of the point, which is very useful if you want to work, for example, with sidewalk connections that are really close to an existing intersection. Another good thing about this UI is that while you're building, the game will highlight points where you can connect the line like this. And also when you're starting a new line, it will also show you a point where it can start. For example, like this. Another new thing is when you want to build high above, the game will display these arrows and also the height you've set. And when we go above a terrain, it will keep displaying that. Let's try building a road here. And just so you know, this is one of the methods that can be employed when building a road, where the nodes are always 10 meters above ground whenever you click. And the other one being this one. Now, as you can see, the height of the road remains constant relative to the sea level. So imagine the plane here is 0. When you start building here and drag it here, the road will remain at a constant height of 10. And of course, when you remove the road, the terrain will restore itself. And one tiny bug, the UI is still illuminated, so the shadows affected, that's gonna be fixed. You don't have to worry about that for now. Another new UI element is this one, and it controls how further back from the intersection actually starts. So you can drag it like this. And what you can also do when you hold shift, you can drag all of them at the same time. Also, as you can see, all these elements also remain at a constant size, except when it's necessary that they have a specific width. So when you zoom out, the width will actually stay true to the width of the road, but everything else will remain constant relative to the camera. So when you're building an intersection, one of the options is just to drag these nodes together and it will create the intersection. But a different option is to just stick it here, then press shift and drag it away. This way you have fine control over where the road ends and the intersection starts. But it also means that both of these elements are in the same position. So that's why there's a half circle, so that you can still select this one and this one separately. And now that you drag it away, It basically works the same way as if you drag this away from the intersection. I'll now explain to you what this UI element is for. So let's build two roads. And let's connect them at a very sharp angle. Like this one, for example. And the game works in a way that where two paths meet, the intersection absorbs part of the road so that there's enough space where the intersection can be generated. And what does this mill line determine is how much an intersection on each side of the road can absorb. So when we drag it to the side, here, and on the other lane as well, here, the intersection has enough space to be generated. Of course, this looks terrible because this is not the right algorithm for an intersection of this shape. So we can swap it, for example, with the basic one. Click generate. Now looks much better. So let's move on. As you might have noticed, we have also changed the way the measurements are displayed. So now it's much easier on the eye. And you can also see that one measurement is animated and it shows you which way you are dragging the road. You can see that the first node is here and the second node is here. Of course, if we built it the other way around, the animation would be reversed. So the next things are line markings. Let's select, for example, double line. And you can place it next to any lane, like this. You can also drag it and delete it. This is very basic and self-explanatory. You can also do this. And the vehicles will of course respect these markers. So basically when there's a full line or a divider, the vehicle will never change lanes. Another thing that has been updated are bus stops. So when you select the bus stop, it will show you where it's gonna be placed. It's just a generic shape, but let's try it out. So we've created a bus stop. We can also hover over it and move it. We can create two bus stops in a row. There's a missing texture right now, but ignore it for the moment, please. And just so you know, the way bus stops work, they can either push all the content to the side, like in this case. You will of course be able to set the width and length of the bus stop, but what you'll also be able to do, and let's build this road as an example, you will be able to set it up in a way where the bus stop will absorb parts of the road. In this example, it absorbed lawn and part of the shoulder. But this way, the width of the road remained constant. And one of the last things related to roads is this priority tool. And it will just show you which road is gonna have priority in a nice way. So let's look at new UI elements inside the intersection edit tool. Let's build something bigger this time. For example, something like this. And let's open the intersection. Let's swap these horrible lane connections with dedicated and regenerate the intersection. This still looks terrible, so let's try removing this road. Yeah, this is much better. So the first thing I want to show you are line markings. When we select, for example, this dashed, we can select a lane on which we want to paint. By clicking on the lane, we can then click on the start position and then on the end position. And line markings will get generated. So this way we can build anything really fast, while it still looks good to work with. This specific case is a great example where keeping the UI elements a constant size really benefits the overall experience, because when you're, for example, working this high above the intersection, the elements will start to face together. And when you zoom in, thanks to the fact that they remain the same size, you can easily select the one you intend to. Next, we can look at an intersection filler. So let's place an island here. That's it. Only this yellow animated line has changed. Another thing is, when you're building a path, the game will show you what kind of agent can travel on that path. So this time I've selected lanes, so the game displays tires. They also remain constant, so you can easily see where the agents are going. And also when you're working very closely within the intersection, they don't block your view. The reason we selected tires and not vehicles is because obviously a lot of different vehicles can drive on these lanes, such as trucks and stuff. When you're building walkways, there are shoes. When you're building bike lanes, there are bike wheels. And when you're building tram lanes, there are bogies. Also, as you've probably noticed, there are new elements that are showing on both ends of the path, which mean that the path is disconnected. So let's destroy it for now. Let's try building some walkways. And as you can see, they are disappearing as we connect the further walkways. The shoes are not moving along the path because pedestrians, unlike vehicles, can go in both directions. And currently bikes don't move either, but this is going to change before the game's release. One important thing to note, when you're building lanes, you can connect them in the wrong way, like this. And while looking at them from this point of view, it all may seem right. When you're actually editing them, the game will notify you that there is a problem. Obviously, these vehicles have nowhere to go. And another good quality of life feature is that when you start building a path here and end it here, the vehicles will obviously go from here to here. But when you start here and drag it, for example, here, the game knows that you've started at the beginning of a different lane and then reverses the direction of this one, even though we started here and ended here. Another thing that's been improved a little is the traffic light tool. So when you open a face, you can see more clearly where the vehicles, pedestrians and other agents need to stop or go. And you also see these neat little pulses that help you visualize where the lanes with the green light actually go. There's also a blue one, which is this green arrow to the right, which basically means you can go right on red. The blue color is of course not final, we may tweak that a little in the future. And lastly, if we destroy this road, since this intersection was created manually, it's not gonna regenerate, so let's destroy this road. And here's a UI element that shows that the intersection is disconnected. We can of course easily reconnect it by using the eyedropper tool, copying the road and placing it like this. Speaking of the eyedropper tool, we have reworked both the eyedropper tool and the demolish tool. So the way it works now, it's much more intuitive. So let's start with the demolish tool. So we can either click here on this icon down there, or we can press a hotkey. And when we're trying to demolish stuff, it doesn't really matter which of these tools on the bottom we have open. We can always destroy anything that we hover over. So for example, we can destroy this road. We can also destroy this tree. We can destroy this vehicle prop. We can destroy this building, and etc. But sometimes you don't want to destroy stuff by accident. So actually when you have a tool open, for example the path tool, and you press Q, you can still destroy everything you hover over. But when you press Q again, or basically click this button again, the only thing the game will allow you to destroy are roads, so that you don't destroy something you don't want to destroy by accident. And this of course works for all the other modes. So for example, when you want to destroy props, you can just double click the destroy tool, and the game will allow you to destroy props, but not roads or buildings. Same thing when you're working inside the intersection. When you press the hotkey, you can destroy literally anything, but when you press it again, you can only destroy the stuff that you're actually working with right now, which is in this case lanes. If we were, for example, here and double click the short key, we would only be able to destroy this and this. Or if we were here and double clicked, we would be only able to destroy line markings. The eyedropper tool can also be toggled with the button down here or with a shortcut, and it works very similarly to demolish tool in a way where you can copy anything on the map that you can actually work with. So for example, if you hover over road, we copy the road and we can immediately start building the same kind of road. We can do the same thing with an intersection. So we've copied the intersection. We can do the same thing with trees. We've copied the trees, and we can also do the same thing with buildings. And we can start building an actual buildings. I mean, I wouldn't call these actual buildings, but you get what I mean. And once again, it also works inside the intersection. So basically, when you want to start placing this, you can just eyedrop it. You want to do this, you can eyedrop it too. or you want to build, for example, walkways, you could just do this. Done. Very easy to work with, which is our ultimate goal. So this was just the first batch of UI improvements. Expect more iterations and more things to be updated. Almost everything that I've shown today was related to in-game UI elements, so not this bottom bar that you can see, and also on the overall user experience. It took a little bit longer because, as some of you may know, my wife has given birth recently to 2 twin girls, so I can't dedicate as much time to developing as I would like to. And that's gonna continue until the end of this year, but starting 2026 things should speed up pretty quickly. In the meantime, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.